We're going to begin our service firstly with the military honors. I'm going to ask those who are able to stand at this time. If you are currently serving in the military or have been honorably discharged
States Navy and a grateful nation. Please accept this flag as a symbol of your loving, honorable, and faithful service.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנאות אשר ירביצני, על מי מנוחות, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב, ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק, ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי ילך בגיא צלמוות, לא ירא, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני, לפני, שולחן נגד צורריי. תשענת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני, כל ימי חיי, כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, אדוני רואי לא אחסר.
As Cantor Rosenbaum chanted Psalm 23 in the Hebrew, please join me, the Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We gather today to share words of praise, of thanks, of honor, and of love, and to be strengthened together as we remember and pay tribute to Robert Sanford Rothenberg, Bob as most called him, or better Papa. We remember a beloved son, brother, husband, father, Papa, grandfather, great-grandfather, uncle, great-uncle, and friend. Today is truly a day of celebration of a long life well lived, as we honor our role model, our inspiration, the patriarch of this family. Bob lived each day as a mensch, a true gentleman, and Bob will most certainly live on in each one of you and each one of us. Bob has departed from this world, leaving a good name, returning home in peace at the age of 97, Kinahara. Bob has left behind many in mourning, his 3 children and their spouses and partners, Barbara and Alan, Barry, Mark, and Judy. And to the apples of his eyes, his 7 grandchildren, to Dan and Erica, Mike and Sarah, Andrew and Mandy, Zach and Shanuri, Jessica and Jeremy, Matthew and Lisa, Brian and Katie. And the diamonds in his crown, his 9 great-grandchildren, Knox, Tay, Max, E, Riley, Olivia, Leora, Ayelet, and Ariel. To his nephew Harvey and Sherry, great-nephews and great-nieces. Our beloved Bob now joins all those who have gone before, most especially Florence, the love of his life, Flo, married for 68 years. His sister Loretta, his parents Adeline and Philip. He joins all those who have passed before in heaven. Today we have some very special family tributes and like to call up 2 grandchildren who will share tributes to their grandfather to Papa, Brian Rothenberg and Mike Roskam.
Hello, everyone. Our family is greatly appreciative of all you being here with us today. Michael and I would like to say a few things about our remarkable grandfather. As the runt, the baby of the family, I was voluntold to give this eulogy. I am honored to speak to you today about a man who was so accomplished and yet so humble. As you know, he is an incredible person with a diverse interest. A World War II veteran, accomplished businessman, an avid golfer, loving sports fan, and a great pickle maker? But while reminiscing in Papa's apartment on Tuesday, I was given a physical reminder of just how much I've always admired him. Sarah handed me a framed paper I did as a 5th grade project. The assignment was to identify and write about a hero in my life. And I, of course, chose Papa and said, I hope I can follow in his footsteps and tell my family about how my grandfather inspired me. Here I am, 24 years later. How am I doing? If my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Lewis, will allow me a delayed submission, I would like to add one more item to this paper. I want to talk about Papa's willingness to show up. He'd show up watching every Guardians, Browns, and Cavs game, even during the years we were bad. And over a lifetime, there were more bad years than good years. When his grandkids played sports, my siblings, swim meets, and all of the boys' soccer games, including all of Drewsy's emerging second-tier sports. He'd be at the sporting event, smoking his cigar and nodding from afar each time we did something good on the field. Our biggest fan. Most of all, he'd show up for people. No matter if it was a waiter, a security guard, or a doctor, he'd make them feel respected and cared for. He would take the time to listen, learn, and create a connection with everyone he talked to. This trait is what made him so well loved by all, even if they only knew him for a moment in time. For family, he'd show up even more. Monday malt dinners every week, every wedding, birthday celebration for every child, grandchild, Papa would show up and demonstrate his deep family ties and loyalties. This lesson, I think Papa wanted us all to learn. He lived 97 years living life to the fullest, and he always showed up. As my grandfather would say, be there for family dinner, be there for a life event, be on time for family. Alan? We all know life is short, but our memories and happy moments will live on forever. Papa taught me this, and I've been spending my life trying to reciprocate what Papa preached. Every Sunday, I would go to his house and watch the Browns or Guardians play. While watching the game, I noticed his happiest moments, featuring his infectious laugh and smile. They came most often when he got a call or a FaceTime from a child, cousin, friend, nephew, great-grandkid, grandkid, or their significant other, also known as his girlfriends. He would turn to me each time and announce who was on the phone, and it was his badge of honor to brag about his popularity. His final FaceTime missed call was from one of his beloved granddaughters, and I am sure some of his grandkids too. And his final words to each of us was, take care of each other. I know that he will continue to show up for each of us in spirit. And though he can't be there in person, I know on October 28th, our wedding day, my hero will show up one last time.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Roskam, and I'm also one of Papa's grandsons. I'm number 2, not the runt. We all love Papa dearly because, well, he was just incredibly lovable. And I want to try to share a couple stories to show the deep impact he had on all of us. Papa was lovable, but he was also trouble. I know that because he told me so. A number of years ago, I became a middle school principal. I told Papa about my new job, and he looked me dead in the eyes and said, I don't like principals, and they didn't like me. He winked at me, though. He said, you're all right, though. There was always a glint in Papa's eye when he knew he was causing trouble. During COVID, Papa moved into my parents' basement and took over that level. There were 11 of us living in that house, and even though COVID was stressful, the time we spent with him was so special. He still caused trouble, though. If his vodka, cranberry, and 2-olive drink wasn't delivered at 4:30 p.m., he would raise a stink. He would call to the kids, mind you, they were 2 and 4 at the time, and get them to share his urgent message. Papa needed his drink. One of my favorite memories is of watching the Guardians on TV in that basement and seeing my kids bond with Papa over his passion for baseball. Papa dominated that TV, though, and just yesterday, my son Max reminded me of his favorite story from that summer. Max, E, and I were in the basement, and they asked me to watch a kids' show. I promptly said no and turned back to what I was doing. Papa was watching from his perch and, of course, leaned in and asked the kids what they wanted to watch. They told him, he put it on, and then he reminded me that this TV was now his, and he could watch whatever he wanted. He delivered the line in a deadpan, but his eyes were twinkling the whole time. The other story I love about Papa getting in trouble is from his time in the Navy. When I interned with the Marines, Papa told me he didn't mess with Marines anymore. He shared that one time on a San Diego pier, he flirted with the wrong girl. A Marine walked over and decked him. Papa, blindsided, fell to the ground. And when the Marine told him to get up, Papa said, no thanks, I'm good down here. See, Papa was also a flirt. Now, he had a wonderful marriage to our grandmother, Flo. They were amazing together and truly set an incredible model for all of us on what it means to make a relationship, what it means to make a relationship last. As you heard, they were together for over 65 years. The way they shared food, communicated through looks, even the way they bickered, always demonstrated deep love and care for each other. And Papa was still a flirt, whether it was with the waitresses at the diners he frequented or his granddaughter-in-laws. The women always adored him, and he did not mind the attention. Papa had opinions. Some might even say he was stubborn. Papa smoked cigars for years and years. When my older brother, Danny, hit kindergarten and realized that smoking was bad for Papa's health, he asked Papa to stop. He said, Papa, no moke. Papa responded immediately, Papa, no moke, Danny, no zert. Danny cared about Papa's health, but not more than his dessert, and promptly said, Papa moke, Papa moke. Papa could also hold a grudge. Years ago, when Brian was applying to colleges, he made the mistake of telling Papa that he didn't get into Ohio State. He went on to have a great collegiate experience in OU, turned into a decent guy. Yet one of Papa's best attributes was his fierce loyalty, to the point where in solidarity with Brian, he refused to root for the Buckeyes, even though his whole family were diehards, including Brian. Papa did not forget. Papa was trouble. He was a flirt. He might have been stubborn, but he was also truly a softie. Barbara, Mark, Barry, maybe even Harvey might say otherwise. And Papa definitely told all of his grandkids at some point that if we were his kids, he would put us over his knee. But that is never how he treated us. He would talk about being this gruff, tough guy, but he was really a sweetheart. He would check in on our families, tell us to look out for each other, play with our kids. He really loved our kids. And ask about our lives. He held our hands, told us he loved us, and ended every conversation imploring us to take care of our families. Papa was an incredible role model, a wonderful family man, and just a fun, charming, compassionate person. He was incredibly lovable, and we will miss him dearly. But we will continue to smile and carry that glint in our eye. That is what he would have wanted, and that is how he taught us to be. Thank you.
Brian and Mike, thank you for those beautiful words from the family. Everybody loved Bob. Papa was simply the best. You already heard it. A charmer, warm and funny, genuine and sweet, a mensch, a guter neshama, a good, kind soul, a straight-up good guy who lived the right way, with kindness and respect as his hallmark, fiercely loyal, could be tough and sarcastic, even a flirt. I think he may have even flirted with me a few times. That twinkle in his eye, that great smile, you knew he was planning a little something special, maybe even mischievous. Those eyes that were filled with kindness, respect, and love. He loved his Yiddish expressions. He loved his country. He loved the nicknames that he gave to everyone, the joy in finding a golf ball. He loved being a card shark and trash talking with his grandkids at the card table. He loved gathering 4 generations together at a Cleveland baseball game downtown. He loved being the king of the basement, holding court at North 1. He loved being Jewish, proudly wore his chai on his neck for his life, a chai that now Barbara is wearing. He loved his hot fudge sundaes and dessert. He loved his chopped herring from Jack's. His famous phrases, what was, or oi Becky. He lived with gratitude, always appreciative. He could never hear, but somehow he was in the middle of everything. He knew all that was going on, usually orchestrating it. He made friends easily. Everyone wanted to be his friend, instantly making connections. He had a skill of building relationships, everyone's favorite. His greatest joy was being with his grandchildren and the greats, as you already heard. His eyes would light up. On FaceTime, he would push his grandkids away so he could see the greats and focus on them. He lived for family. He lived for you, and you were truly his number one. Growing up in the Kinsman neighborhood here in Cleveland, raised in the Great Depression, it was tough, and he was poor. He had a bar mitzvah, if you can call it that, in the basement. He would take 2 buses and a long walk so he could join the Belfair basketball games. He had a loyal group of friends growing up, graduating from East Tech. Bob was drafted straight into the Navy. He exemplified those that we call the greatest generation, serving his country, seeing action in the Western Pacific, a war veteran. There are stories of him finding Shabbos dinners across the world in Panama using just abyssal Yiddish, returning home, making use of the GI Bill, beginning his studies at Western Reserve. Not soon later, he met his Bashirtz, the love of his life, his number one, Flo. She was a student at Ohio State. Sorry, I said the word. She had come home when her father, Joseph, had gotten ill and helped at work. And just before she finally planned to return to her studies in Columbus after a few years hiatus, she happened to meet a certain guy. She was fixed up on a date with Bob. It was a double date with Norman and Blanche, and they hit it off. The story goes, actually, Bob told me when we prepared for Flo's funeral, that he asked her to stay in Cleveland and not to return to Columbus for studies. And she said yes, but she did say one thing. He didn't remember that they actually had met years before, and at that point she took it to remind him that he attended her sweet 16 birthday party. And then she said yes, that she would stay. Bob was living in Kinsman. Florence was in the Heights. It was a schlep. So she actually gave him a car so he could see her during those courtship days. Her father happened to have a second car, an old Pontiac, and we say the match was made. Married on June 12, 1949 at Heights Temple with Rabbi Rosenthal and Cantor Meisels, enjoying, as you heard, 68 incredible years together. They were in sync. They complemented each other and completed each other. Bob was outgoing, Flo was reserved. They golfed together at Lake Forest here in Cleveland, at the President in Florida. They took care of each other, self-reliant until their 90s. Flo truly was the love of his life. They worked together in her family business, the vending machine business, which transformed from the original booths at Geauga Lake to vending machines, pinball, jukebox, and pool tables. Bob was the general manager for Joe Lucan Music, and over the years the kids would come and work at the shop at Huff and East Cleveland. Barbara would be the secretary during the summer. Barry and Mark would come and help work with their dad often. They were inseparable, Bob and Flo. They eat breakfast together, go to work together until they sold the business. They were a powerful pair, or as we would say, a power couple, always looking out for each other, whether it was on the golf course or at the restaurants where they were regulars. At dinner, they had a little thing. They would always order one entree. Florence would cut it in half, and of course, taking care of Bob, she always took the smaller half, leaving more for her Bob. But he wanted to be fair and equal, and they would raise a bit of a ruckus at the restaurant, playing it out every single time, and everybody loved it. Grandma took great care of Papa until when her health declined, and then the tables turned. Bob returned her devotion and care, refusing to leave her side as she declined, watching over her, an incredible act of love and devotion. The family remembers that very special 50th wedding anniversary, the cruise to Alaska, those blue family shirts that many of you still have, all the memories and the love shared together. He was a great father, as you already heard. for Barbara, for Mark and Barry. You shared memories with me as we sat yesterday. Family trips, driving down to Florida, those 3-day drives, and then when Dad would negotiate with the motels, a different motel every single year for your stay down there. Dad had a rhythm, a routine. He would wake up very early and golf, maybe near sunrise, so he could come back late in the morning to spend the rest of the day with each of you. Swimming in the pool at the motel, teaching you how to swim, and then afternoons at the ocean. Mom would not let you go to the ocean unless Dad was with you, and they were very special times. And somehow Bob knew all these special places in Florida. He would take you to the hidden specialties of Florida through tunnels and back alleys and channels, find where all the sharks were and all the most interesting things in Florida. You had amazing times with him. You shared with me the special cross-country trip that you were promised for years, that you finally fulfilled on, meeting your grandparents when they disembarked from their cruise in Los Angeles. The avid sports fan, he took you to the Browns' 1964 championship game. You were there with him to celebrate that great Cleveland victory. Barron's hockey games, and if you didn't read it in the notice, Bob bought he bought tickets when Cleveland basketball wasn't even Cleveland basketball. In 1967, when the Cincinnati Royals, starring Oscar Robertson and Jerry Lucas, did a 10-game stint here in Cleveland, Bob bought tickets, and those same tickets still exist from the beginning of the Cavaliers at the Coliseum, and then they're moved to Cleveland. The family still has those seats, center aisle, 8th row, a tribute to Bob. You already heard his favorite sport is baseball. He was a good first baseman on his own right. As a teen, he worked at League Park. He sold cushions for those wooden benches, and the family gave him a thrill at the renovated League Park. One day, he threw out the first pitch for a game. Indians and the Guardians were his thing. He would call Alan every single day before the game, ask who's throwing, and talk about the tribe and now the Guardians. And you heard he taught that love of baseball to the grandkids and the greats. He knew every pitcher and every player, even though he could barely hear. The grandchildren and the greats were his life, and his lifeline, his everything. He loved to welcome your partners, as he said, his girlfriends that entered the family. There are so many Florida stories that you already heard. Here's one. Breakfast was always the highlight of any of the grandchildren's trip to Florida when you visited with them. Bob and Flo, Grandma and Papa, had their places. They had a series of holes in the wall that they would take you to. And when you got there, you didn't order. Everyone knew Bob and Flo. They would simply bring the food straight out to them. And everyone was amazed by this. Bob and Flo, that was who they were. They built friendships, everlasting and long-lasting friendships. Bob truly loved his sister Loretta and his nephew Harvey and Sherry. Growing up, they lived in the house that Bob built for them. And Bob lovingly served as a father figure to Harvey and remained so close to the end. He had a special relationship with his makatanista, Alan's mother Betty, who recently passed. They were somehow connected, and somehow just 3 weeks later we're back here to say goodbye. They were partners in crime these last few years, the matriarch and the patriarch of their combined families, and somehow we know they're also together again. The family is grateful to Bob's aides, to Chantel, Yolanda, and Cassandra for the care and the support they provided him. And I want to say that this family was incredibly devoted to Bob, to Papa. I know it personally. I've seen how devoted you were, always encircling, always being with him, giving him care, dignity, and love. He knew it. We all knew it. There's a Hebrew word, kavod, which means respect. And the Mishnah asks a question, Ezehu mechukbad, who is an honored person? And there it says an honored person is a person who gives honor to everyone. Well, kavod, as you would say it in Yiddish, is what Bob lived by. Papa knew how to show respect to everyone, and through that, he garnered kavod, respect from everyone. The Torah says, Kaved et avicha, honor your father and your days will be long. Bob lived with respect. He gave respect. You gave Papa respect to the last day, always with dignity and love. And this family I know, will honor him for generations to come. We will miss Papa's big heart, his kind heart, and his smile. He will always be remembered. May his name always bring blessings. Amen. We'll rise now as the cantor chants our memorial prayer.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochin Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, V'ma'aloi Kedoshim Utarim, Kizahar Arakia, Ma'ezhirim. At Nishmat Reuven ben Feivel Shalach Leolamo, Began Eden Temenuchato, Ahana Balarachamim, Hastireu Beseter Kenafecha Leolamim, Utror Bitzror Achayim et Nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, Ve'yanuach b'shalom amishkavo, V'nomar Amen.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of our beloved Robert, Bob, Sanford, Rothenberg, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May he merit the reward for living with righteousness, with kindness, with smile, with caring, with fun, with love, and with respect. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he continue to be an example, a role model, an inspiration. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Please be seated. Following the service, interment burial will be at Chesterland Memorial Park. And then the family will be receiving friends at Barbara and Alan Roscan's home after the funeral today until 5:30 after the burial, and then resuming Shiva tonight from 7 to 9 p.m. with an evening minyan service at 7:15. Also be sitting tomorrow, Friday, from 3 to 6. The family asks those who would like to contribute in Bob's memory to B'nai Yeshurun or to the Alzheimer's Association of Cleveland.
See you guys tonight. Go out at 7. Yeah. Roadside for his mom.
Slip out. Hold on. You know you're still in here.